My dad got a mental illness at a pretty young age, so I had to deal with the fact that there was a lot of chaotic environmental stuff going on. So I had to deal with the fact that, like, I can't trust this big dad figure to do what a big dad figure does. So I have to take responsibility for myself. Now, what I had to do from a young age was start to then be much more aware of myself than I would have been otherwise. Like a normal little kid, or a kid without a mentally ill parent doesn't have to deal with that, for example. So that changed the way I had to think about the world, right? And on top of that, there was other things, right? Because I'm a weird little redheaded kid, so I got picked on at school, and we didn't have a lot of money, so I was the poor kid. So there's a few things that were layered into my story. So it was easy for me to start to take on a story of, I'm not okay. The world's not okay. I can't trust the world. Bad things might happen. And of course, because I started to see things like my dad get taken away by the police, or having to go and see him in jail sometimes because of crazy he got involved with, or having to visit him in hospitals, or all the different stuff that I had to go through as part of dealing with someone that has a mental illness. And that was, part of many things that have happened in my life, but I'll just use that as an example. So that one condition in my life created a history where it's really easy for me to look at the world and imagine that there's catastrophes that are going to happen somewhere. Imagine that there's bad things that are going to happen at some time. And I can, if I want to, really easily turn the world into a big show. Because I've got a lot of conditioning around that I carry from when I was a kid. And that's part of my history. It's part of where I've come from. And it gets really complicated too, because if I really start getting existential on it, why did my dad have those issues? What were the conditions that had to happen to him? So he was abused. He had a tough time. He came from a very shitty environment. So what was all the stuff that he was dealing with that created his problems that, funnily enough, then subconsciously influenced me because he's my dad and because we have a very intimate relationship? So I'm carrying some level of his story in my story, even though my story is not his story, but I have to compensate for his story because he's my dad, right? So that's an example. And of course, we have this with family on a lot of different levels. Our mums, our brothers, our sisters, and it happens to kids at school as well. We have kids that beat us up, or kids that don't like us, or the pretty girls don't like us, or whatever the story is that happens in our history. Those things compound over time. And if we pay attention, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of events that have happened in our lives. Hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of little programming events. Tiny little things where we weren't looked at the right way, where we had a negative experience, or something happened and it wasn't even negative, but we interpreted it as negative. The amount of times that I've felt about something because I had so many things that were not working in my life is off the charts. Now, if I'm not aware of that, if I just let that subconscious programming just run, because it's just under the surface, then it has its own structure. And what that means is, and I've expressed this to you guys in different ways, what that means is my perception can't help but fall back onto that data unless it's been updated. So what that means at a subconscious level is, I'm assuming the world's a chaotic place and I can't trust it. And all kinds of other things too. Maybe I can't trust authority. Maybe I can't trust the government or the medical system or education system or, authority or whatever. So then that starts to have this thing, and if I'm not careful, I could go to war with those things, the government, the cops, I could start becoming adversarial to the world. That might start creating all kinds of behaviors in me. Maybe I get violent, maybe I become a drug addict. Maybe I do things that are trying to compensate for these patterns inside myself that to the rest of the world just looks like I'm a quit. But really what's going on is I'm just trying to balance the chaos inside myself because of these unknown factors or these unconscious factors. Now, what I did, which was slightly different to what a lot of people do, is I realized at a pretty young age that I needed to work out how to not be a victim of that. I needed to work out how to not fall into the same old patterns of unconsciousness and reactivity that most people get stuck in. So it took me a long time to start to find the path, but around about 18 or 19, I started to realize there's something inside my head that creates my reality, and I need to work out how to work with that thing in my head so that I can create my reality. Still the big question of who am I and how do I make this work? How do I really understand what's going on? And what I really got onto the path of understanding was that I needed to work on myself. I needed to understand how to reprogram myself. And there's a long story and there's a short story. The short story is that I worked out that I need to reprogram my history. I need to change the meaning that I put on my history, and I need to change the way in which I create the stories inside my head so that I'm not playing out the same limiting stories over and over again. So that I'm not going to be another replica of my family's fuck-ups or my father's fuck-ups. You know? So I'll be a different version. And I can't help but deal with the fact that I've been impacted by some of those events, but I can create larger meanings around that. So what that means in practical terms for each one of you guys is that the answer to stop doubting yourself is to do the work on what's really going on underneath the surface. Because what it looks like in practical terms is you focus on how are you f***ing yourself up. So for example, if I was talking about myself, I would do something like, I want to work on improving myself in this area. Okay, let's use this area, okay? Let's just say, okay, I want to get better with women. I start trying to do it. And then I start to feel feelings of contraction inside my chest. I start to feel doubts inside my head. I start to feel like this is hard, this is not going to work, this is a waste of time, I don't like it. Now, I can listen to that as if that's the truth. But if I go into like my own psychoanalysis mode, if I go into reprogramming mode, then I have to capture that stuff, or I have to separate from it and go like, that's a process that's happening inside my head. How do I do that process? How do I doubt myself? How do I stop myself? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Because there's a structure to every single one of the things that you do, whether it be successful or not successful. So I have to look at the structure. How do I trigger that? And then I need to ask myself, what is it that is reminding me of? What have I had happen in my history that reminds me of that same pattern? Where else have I felt constriction in my chest and doubts and fears? And I go, oh, I remember that my ex-girlfriend fucked me over 2 years ago and it fucking sucked and I felt like this. And I write that down. Ex-girlfriend fucked me over and it sucked. Okay, cool. And then I think, what else? And I go back and I'm like, oh, I remember in high school I loved a girl for 2 years and she fucked all my friends and she didn't even talk to me. Okay, the girl in high school that fucking blah, blah, blah. And I go back and I go deeper and I go, what else? Oh, I remember when I was 4 years old and I wanted to just be hugged by my mum, but she just wouldn't come and hug me because she was too busy with work. Okay, boom, boom, boom. So I start going back, because there's a series of stories. And those stories are still occupying your subconscious. They're still operating. And what happens, and this is advanced stuff, is they hijack you. Those stories are subconsciously operating. And they hijack you because all you know on a conscious level, because you can't handle this consciously, is you're just walking around and you're like, oh, there's a girl. I want to go and talk to the girl. But subconsciously, the girl represents intimacy. The girl represents love. The girl represents all these things. And that goes into all the files. And your subconscious goes and just brings up a whole system of reactions in the body and moods and behaviors and beliefs and everything. And all you know is like, oh, I feel weird. And it's not conscious. What I do with my one-on-one coaching, and I've upgraded a lot of my system recently, but what I'll do is I will take, especially if you've got these kinds of patterns, I will take you through a deep questionnaire and you'll find exactly what's going on inside your psyche. And there'll be things, because there's symptoms showing up. It's exactly the same as doing like a blood test or something. It's like it shows up in your body because you can see it. So you do an analysis of yourself, and for example, and I might be wrong, but like that comes up as like fear of abandonment, right? So it's like, boom, he's got an unconscious pattern of fear of abandonment. You know, I've got an unconscious pattern of pessimism and negativity, among others. So I've got to be aware of that. Like that's one of my demons. Pessimism and negativity is one of my demons. Abandonment's one of his demons. Emotional deprivation, you know, not getting the love that you need from people consistently creates a demon of emotional deprivation. You walk around the world going, I can't get what I want. Every time I try to get what I want, it doesn't go get what I want. I don't know why I feel so terrible all the time. It's because the fucking demon's there going like, look, feed me that pattern because that's who I think I am. So we've got to work on that stuff, right? And it's intense. But what we do is, like I said, we name the demon. We catch the demon in the act. It's like, I see you, I see you. I see my negativity. I get it. Where does that come from? It comes from a bunch of shit that I've been carrying around in my life. What do I need to do about it? I need to love it. I need to change it. I need to add resources in there. I need to take that demon and say, hey, you're an unevolved part of myself. You need to grow up. You need to find your place. What do you need to grow up? And then I need to go into my like meta-programmer kind of God self, my higher self, and ask like, as the angelic God awesomeness that I am, what would I love to give my unevolved demon so that he can grow into another part of myself that's functional? And what will happen if you do this work well is you'll learn a very, very powerful lesson. And the good news is it's actually really powerful to have these experiences. You know why? Because you will be a way more sophisticated human being with a much deeper and more powerful character as a result of going through these evolutions. And what will happen is once you conquer abandonment, you'll be like, I know what abandonment is. And I have a lot of compassion for people that have abandonment because I've been there and I've evolved through that. And you will also be able to then work with people on a very amazing level. And it doesn't even have to be conscious. People, this is a really cool thing to recognize as well. It's an interesting theory, and I don't think it's a theory, I think it's a fact, is our nervous systems have a very powerful capacity to resonate. And what's happening, and this happens to kids all the time, right? What kids do at a really young age is they're picking up what you call limbic resonance. So what that means is they're constantly reading and feeling the nervous system of their parents, and they're like taking on the patterns of the parent. And especially when we're really, really young, when we're really, really little babies, that's why little babies like hang off their parents all the time, because their nervous system is so sensitive and so like vulnerable. They have to like anchor onto something. Like, I'm going to steal from your nervous system to anchor myself, so because your nervous system's stronger than mine, and I'll be okay. And then in time, I'll get stronger and stronger, and I'll be able to handle my own kind of nervous system. But what happens, which is intricate but powerful, is that we take whatever patterns that we've been given from our family. And what happens, which is nasty, is we have blind spots. You know, our families have blind spots. Like if your parents, like, you know, my mum's dad never got love. So because he never got love, he didn't know how to love my mum. So now my mum's a bit weird about love because she doesn't know what that is properly. So there's a glitch in the family line. How far does that go back? You know, and maybe that happened yet again because people were just trying to survive. You know, if you're trying to survive through a war or oppression, or, you know, you're trying to not get your head cut off, there's not a lot of love, not a lot of time for love. You know, you just got to like be like, we're just going to survive this day, this week. Or if people are traumatized because somebody bashed their head in or raped them or something, then that sort of thing creates a glitch in the family line. The truth is, we're all suffering from post-traumatic stress. Every single one of us. Because society is a bad parent. And because we have our own parental issues. Because we've been subject to lots and lots of levels of micro traumas, and probably our fair share of actual traumas as well. And that creates post-traumatic stress. That creates post-traumatic embitterment. We walk around with these glitches in our heads of all these problems. And how do we heal that? Well, we've got to work on the nervous system. Neurologically, by going in and working on our history, by healing ourselves, by taking in new stories, and by relaxing the nervous system and by healing the nervous system. And then again, it's a whole thing about spiritual traditions. Like, it's not exactly what we're doing in this workshop, but like, you can tap into the elements and let those elements start to heal you. Like being outside with trees and sky and park there's an element of that which helps your nervous system be revived. It's much healthier to be here than it is to be stuck in an office under, you know, fluorescent lights. You know, or just doing this all day for 8 hours, because your body's like, you know, that's not what we're designed to do. Our nervous system's designed to be dynamic and breathe fresh air and be around trees and and connect with other human beings and like do what we evolved to do for hundreds of thousands of years. So we're living in this very alien environment that we've created for ourselves over time. Now, what I'm trying to express is that we need to work on upgrading ourselves bit by bit, to healing our nervous system bit by bit, and to creating resonance inside of ourselves. Because yet again, your nervous system has a memory of what healthy resonance feels like. And that's part of what you guys are responding to. Like when you're feeling like, I feel weird or I don't feel right, what is happening is your nervous system is telling you, I'm not in aligned resonance with my true self. I'm not in aligned resonance with my whole self. And what's unfortunate is nobody gave you a manual to work out how to deprogram it or to fix it. So we've got to try and work out what to do. So that's why, like, I'm trying to give you some ways to do that. And it takes like longer term work. It's possible. You need to create a context of healing, you need to apply some methods, and you need to consistently do the work on yourself over time. And you can heal these things. And another way of putting what I was saying before is we need to learn to reparent ourselves. You need to reparent yourself. You need to recognize, and I was saying this to you yesterday, we have different parts. Like some of us have really sad children inside of us. I've got a sad child inside me. I've got to take care of him. He gets f***ed up sometimes. Some of us have angry parents that are constantly telling us to do a better job. Like, be better. Because we've learned that a lot when we were kids. Some of us have angry children. We're like, to everything. Because of whatever. You world! So these are different modes inside of us, and they can get triggered. They get triggered by environments, they get triggered by people, they get triggered by circumstances. And it's intense when they come up because they possess us. And what we're seeking to do is to bring a healthy adult into the center of this experience, which is what I'm trying to talk to now. The healthy part of you, the healthy adult that's evolving through all of this. And what can happen when we do this work properly is you will heal. You will not be a victim of that anymore. And the truth is that all change is the same process. All change is the same process. It's like, be aware of where things are not working, step out of the problem, create a solution, apply the solution. Once that's done, you can exit the problem. Now, that goes for our negative memories. So what that means is I'm going along in my life, everything's fine. I see a girl, she reminds me of my ex-girlfriend. I feel terrible, okay? I can then just cry and feel terrible about it and just wait for it to happen again. Or I can say, that's a pattern, that's an unresourceful reality. I can step out of it. I can think, what do I need to understand about that situation that I'm not understanding, that if I did, would let me be free of those emotions? Maybe I need to change the way I look at her. Maybe I need to change the way I feel she looks at me. Maybe I need to change the lessons that I learned. Maybe I need to change something. Then I put that information back in, and then I look at that girl who reminds me of ex-girlfriend. I'm like, cool, that's a girl who reminds me of ex-girlfriend. Doesn't mean anything. And then you have peace around it. So the strategy, or the thing that I'm talking about is what you would call like reframing your history. There's a number of ways of doing that. But notice where or what's going on. Write down a list of 6 things, 6 memories that go all the way back to the first time that you have that memory. Start from the earliest one. Give yourself a new story. What would you add, subtract, or modify so that you could bring peace to that memory, so that you could resolve that memory, so that you could turn that into a 10 out of 10. So it's something that feels good when you look at it. And then you say to your subconscious, this new representation of that memory is how I want to look at that. Thank you. And you go, and you breathe it in, you integrate it, and then you go to the next one. And you do the next one, you do the next one. And what will happen is, whatever the trigger was will then become a trigger for all the new resources.
What's up, ninjas? Thanks for watching the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this material so that I can keep on growing this amazing channel. And if you'd like to get the help that I can offer, I would like you to check out the link in the description. Go to my website and you will be able to find amazing limited time offers to help you to be able to break through and make the changes that you would really like to have in your life. Until then, this is the Shaman saying peace out. May all your dreams come true, and I'll see you guys on the other side.